One of my first big take on starting a business was trying to help everyday average Americans to save money. That's really what I did when I was at that point in my life too, is because I would literally find groceries to be very expensive or try to optimize how to buy groceries in an optimum manner.
Welcome to The Decision from Nashville EO, where you will hear the rest of the story after tough decisions were made by entrepreneurs who faced adversity and lived to tell about it.
Welcome to The Decision, the podcast by EO Nashville by and for entrepreneurs. We talk about all the fun that we have starting, running, growing, selling businesses, and dealing with all the stuff that happens in between. With me, as always, I just realized I forgot to introduce you in the last podcast.
It's fine.
I think everybody knows Robert by now. Mr.
Hi,
Robert
hello.
Hartline, welcome.
Thanks to be here.
I have these problems from time to time.
Hey, it's okay. We get distracted.
It's the second one of the day. I'm getting better. With us today, Mr. Key Quinn of the Paros Group. Key, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So we were talking just briefly before about the things that are going on today. Today is actually April 4th.
Mm-hmm. Big things are coming.
Another big tanking of the stock market. And I know you're in a business that is very much hitched to that. I mean, we all are, I guess, on some level, but especially with what you're doing. So tell us a little bit about what you do and what's your take on where things are headed right now.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Key Quinn. I started a company in Nashville, Tennessee called the Paros Group in 2017. And right now we have a total employees of 15 people, and we develop infill luxury homes in Middle Tennessee. What that means is infill means that we don't just go buy a tract of land and try to develop roads and infrastructure and build a whole bunch of houses. We just primarily focus on infills, which means that we buy existing lots within the city or we buy tear downs and we build, I would say like semi-custom to full speculative homes in Middle Tennessee. And we do a lot of them. So for the last 2 to 3 years, we probably do about 35 homes, maybe up to 40 homes a year, and our annual revenue is around $45 to $50 million a year. So that's on average about $1.5 million per transaction. But we primarily focus our efforts in East Nashville in the $1 million category, and also in Green Hills in the $2.5 million category, and we'll do a lot of other things too, but primarily that's our main bread and butter of our business. So what that means, my company, we speculate on the market. So we speculate the demand and the supply and the different categories of homes within the markets that we target, and we have to assess what are the external factors that's going to impact the business. So my job, and we're talking about it today, is how things today is going to impact our business now and probably 18 to 24 months from now today too. So with that said, what's happening today has been a long waited for me for quite a while, because through our organization EO and through the forum meetings that we've had for probably the last 2 forums, I have indicated that this tariff is going to be a major inflection point in our in the American economy as well as my business. That being said, yesterday was a big day. Today is even a bigger day, and I feel like Monday will even be something that will be hopefully not as big, but I think it might be just as big of a day as today and yesterday too.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think Americans really understand tariffs because we just don't have an understanding what tariffs are when it relates to our everyday lives. But I know for me, I go to Costa Rica and spend a lot of time there. And when you're in the grocery store, anything that's not made in Costa Rica has a tariff on it. And so if you want to buy some ketchup, you're going to spend 50% more on a bottle of ketchup than you would. And so it's the way their economy works is they generate most of their income from tariffs. And we're just not accustomed to that. So a lot of people are just really unsure about how that's going to shake out. What do you think? How long do you think it will take people to kind of get their footing on this new reality that we're going to?
Well, I mean, it's going to now that they have implemented the tariffs on all the countries. From my standpoint, the direct impact for my business is like lumber, for example. 40-50% of our raw material lumber comes from Canada. And if there's a 25% tariff on all raw lumber, our direct, 2x4s and 2x6s will have direct impact. But lots of our what I call our finished goods, which is our OSBs or our sheathings or things that are added value like pre-treating wood, all those companies that are producing those finished products that are still going into building components will be subject to those taxes too. But a simple way of saying it is, let's just talk about every single home we build that has the appliance package. Most of them are coming from another country or overseas. So if my typical appliance package costs $10,000 per house, a direct impact will be that 25%. So starting whenever it was, I think April 10th or whenever the effect date is, we're going to be subject to those particular inflationary tariffs, which means that we either have to absorb those type of costs within the margins that we have, or we have to pass that back to the customers as well.
What percentage of the building products that you use do you feel like will be impacted? I mean, lumber's got to be big, right? And there's many others. Have you analyzed that in any depth?
Yeah, I would say like overall the construction costs, a simple math will probably be 50% of our building costs is probably materials, and 50% of the total building cost, half of it is all materials and half of it is all labor. So I would say 50% of the entire build cost will be impacted by something of this nature, unless it's completely sourced domestically.
Right.
And I don't have the breakdown on which one is which, but I would suspect at least half of our probably purchased raw materials or components are somewhat going to be affected in some manner. So the major impact will be 25% or whatever it is from Canadian goods, but there would be some smaller tariffs that are added to the components that could impact the rising costs.
What got you in the business in the beginning?
You mean the very, very beginning?
Yeah.
I think for me, I always had a entrepreneur spirit because my parents were restaurant owners. They started a restaurant, a Japanese restaurant in Nashville in the early 90s. And it was in Hillsborough Village, right by Vanderbilt. It's a small restaurant, seats about 50 people. So when I was a kid, I was probably 10 or 11, I started working in restaurants. And so that was kind of the beginning of my entrepreneur understanding of small business. And as I grew into my professional career, which I graduated as an engineer in 2004, I pursued a corporate path. But I still had this innate fire in me that wanted to do something else for myself instead of working for a big corporation. So that's one of the very beginning thoughts that I had about doing something while I was in corporate America.
What were some of the things that you learned while you were a kid and working in the restaurant business with your parents?
That you don't get paid a lot when you're working for your parents, and that it's almost like
they take advantage sometimes.
It's almost like an indentured servitude. Coming from an Asiatic background, and my parents being first generation immigrants, I went through the full gamut of first generation immigrants about working hard, and we're not like the rest of them. We got to work hard to get ahead. Yeah. So that was the biggest learning. The other biggest learning was really America was just a land of opportunity. And really you came from a country at that time. I came to America in 1989, in November 1989. And if you guys know what 1989 three major world events happened in 89. So number one, it was the Berlin Wall that fell. And then I think right after that, the USSR disbanded. And then on June 4th, the Tiananmen Square massacre happened in China. So those are three major shifts in events. And I think that's could possibly be one of the reasons why we had an opportunity to come to America at that time too.
What was your first business?
Well, when I was in corporate America, I was working for Schneider Electric at that time and started in 2008. And one of my first big take on starting a business was trying to help everyday average Americans to save money. And that's really what I did when I was at that point in my life too, is because I would literally find groceries to be very expensive or try to optimize how to buy groceries in an optimum manner. So in fact, I would go to like get the Sunday newspaper and find out what are all the weekly ads for all the grocery stores. And usually the first page of the grocery ads is your loss leader. So they want you to buy the $1.99 chicken breast. So for you to get in, they will make money off all the rest of the groceries you would buy for your family for the week. So my thought was and still today, it's still a very convoluted process because they don't want to share how they want to fully market their loss leaders to get you into their stores. So my thought was to develop an app or an engine optimization search to kind of for you to plot your main grocery items onto that particular application, and it'll somehow go and extrapolate the best possible way for you to shop. In fact, I would actually go to like 2 grocery stores on Sunday sometimes, or 3, just so that I can get the best deals that I can. Now I don't have any time to do that. But at that point, that was the motivation behind it. If I could have done it, I could have saved, I think it was a pretty significant amount of money at that point in time. I wanted to help others to do so. And I went through the full gamut of writing a business plan and working with at that point, it was the ETC, the Engineering Joint Council Technology Center in Nashville at that time. And I went through the whole weekend program, the Jumpstart Foundries. And I was to the point where I really wanted to like develop the app and beta test it. And during beta testing, what I found out was the target market that I was focused on were all people like me that want to save money. So not necessarily everyone that want to pay for my service, but they like the service. So I was hitting some walls on generating revenue, and at that point, an app and some type of websites was somewhere between $50,000 to $75,000 to start with. So I didn't have the capital to do so, and I failed to actually at that point to raise any money to make that initial transition to move forward with that business concept. So that kind of stood for what it was. It was kind of my first try to get to a certain point, but the learning behind that was tremendous because, I understood the path of how you go from a concept to actually get to beta testing a specific concept to try to prove your concept.
Yeah, and what's interesting is your engineering degree. How does that come into play with the business today?
I would say the biggest attribute for my engineering degree was probably my stint at Cummins Diesel. So when I graduated from Tennessee Tech in 2004, I worked as a plant manufacturing product engineer in the factory. And in the factory, there's a lot of just-in-time work, lean manufacturing, Six Sigma, all those various tools to help the factories to learn to be leaner. And through that work for multiple years, I was able to pick up a lot of those tools and kind of manage my business currently with those same type of processes. And that's probably one of the biggest attributes that I have. And I can go into more details about that, but I would say like the company that I have now, the fundamentals behind what you see has a lot of processes and systems behind it.
Well, how'd you get started? in the business that you're in now? What was the first step for you?
Well, I would say my initial likings for real estate, and I think, and by the way, I think everybody likes real estate. I've talked to so many people about real estate. I know people that love real estate that don't even own any real estate. They just want to talk about real estate. So I always had a liking for real estate. I always talked about real estate. I would say when I moved back to Nashville, I was on the general trajectory as everyone else, where you bought a piece of where you worked, had a good job, you bought a piece of property, you either lived in it for a while and you decided to move out of it and rent it out. And that's what I did. I kind of bought a condo and then decided to upgrade to another condo, but kept the current one. And I had a renter that was able to pay the notes. And I kind of had a handful of condos at that time. But it wasn't until probably 2011 when I got into a group of people in Nashville called REN, Real Estate Investment Network of Nashville. And what they taught me was that you can create value in real estate, which is your fix and flips and your developments and things that are just not just buy and holds. And that was the initial step of me broadening my view into real estate development or adding value to real estate than just the traditional way of just buying and holding different condos or houses for rentals.
So I guess you saw what was happening in Nashville, the influx of people moving into Nashville, which kind of coincided with that timeline too. 12, 13 years ago, Nashville started to heat up. Well, I guess the real estate market really didn't take off until 14 or 15. Mm-hmm. But talk about what the early days of that looked like and how you found your model and turned it into what it is today.
Yeah. So back in 2011, I was kind of a fish out of water. I didn't know hardly anything about real estate. And by the way, I think real estate is something that it's very interesting because it's one of the biggest economic drivers for the whole world. Mm-hmm. But yet there's not really like standard course you actually go to in school to learn about it. It's every bit about real estate. It requires your self-motivation to get into it. But when I was in 2011, when I joined the group, I wanted to find the first deal to add value to. So I had, not only did I didn't know what I was doing, I had to find mentors. I had to find, people that have just done all sorts of different types of real estate, whether if it's fix and flips, wholesaling, hard money lending, full developments, building. And I didn't, for me, I wanted to just kind of get my beak wet. So one of my first things I did was I found a lady named Christina Teeple, and she helped me to understand how to renovate homes. And she actually helped me with renovating the first 2 to 3 houses that we have. And I would say our first flip didn't happen until probably 2014. So, and back in 2011, that was still very much a dark time in real estate. There was probably I think 2011 was probably the bottom. Yeah. 12 and 13 was a little better, and 14 is when real estate really got back into its feet. So at that time, I did several different projects during that time, and I call those kind of lipstick rehabs, which means that they're just painting, new countertops, new cabinets, just freshen up the bathroom. So all those quick wins. And I remember specifically in 2014 because it was the year when my daughter was born. So Rachel was pregnant, and we had our first flip, and we were doing it while she was pregnant. I was painting the house. I was doing lots of manual work myself for a couple years. And that one of the deals, from the time we bought it to the time we actually sold it, it was like maybe 60 days or so. It was a quick project. And I think we made like $20,000 on that project. And I was ecstatic. Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, this sounds like I don't ever understand how you can just do this and just make $15,000-$20,000 here. This is great. If I can just do like 2 or 3 of these a year, I'll be golden, So that was the beginning, the taste of a quick win to kind of get your confidence in that space.
How times would have been different if that flip didn't work.
Yeah, it would have. I mean, I would have definitely. I don't know what I would have done if the flip didn't work. Yeah. So it did work. But hopefully I would have gotten up and tried again. So, but that was one of those situations where it did work. And then time after time, we started doing more intensive rehabs, which is like full gut jobs, rearranging the entire floor plans, new HVAC, electric and plumbing. So, and then we started doing a little bit more of addition work. And we got a little bit more comfortable with the rehabbing work. So, in 2016, one of my friends, Rich Harris, brought me an opportunity to develop a piece of land with him in downtown Nashville. And it was like a little bit right outside the Gulch. The area was still very, very transitional. And we decided to build our primary house on this lot together. So he would live on one side and I'll live on the other side. And then we actually had to we developed it, but we had to hire a general contractor to help us build that project. So from that experience, I was able to learn a lot about new construction at that time too. And after that, I decided to do one project by myself and another project by myself. And then,
as you're talking about this, I know you're a Tony Robbins fan.
Mm-hmm.
And as you're talking about each one of these experiences, like you try this little thing. I'm going to try rearranging this house. And that was probably you had to have some, courage to be able to do that. Cause I don't know about you, but I would be afraid I'd screw up. Right. But you kept doing it and growing and excelling every time you did it. And I could see how your just frame of mind of like working yourself to your edge,
Yeah, I think you have to always kind of, I think as an entrepreneur, you always have to have the moments where you have to reinvent yourself once you've satisfied a certain goal. So you always have to push yourself. Like the process of being even today, I'm still pushing myself to expand myself in different product mixes, in different geographic expansions, in higher end type of homes. These are all different mindsets and different, I would say, systems and processes to manage those projects. So I think it's just innate for an entrepreneur to always try to be in a position to be comfortable with being uncomfortable in that situation.
What do you think the biggest challenge you've had to face, whether personal or business?
Man, I would say one of the biggest things I'm working on right now, as far as business wise, obviously this tariff thing is going to be a major shift for my business. Whether if it's good or bad, I don't know if we're going to go into recession or if we're going to be back into all-time high stocks in the next 2 months. So
right. And anything's possible.
Anything's possible, right? Yeah. So I think we're at a very big moment in the economy where things can shift different ways, and our president has made these policies, but he's not in control over all the consequences. So we just have to kind of be steadfast in managing what can come. But as far as personally, I've been, because I came from a China communist background, I didn't have a lot of I did not have any religious backgrounds. I didn't have any. Because I'm an engineer, I never had any psychology classes. So the whole inner peace mindset and being a entrepreneur and lead with heart and passion is something that I had to learn in the later parts of my year. And that's something that I've been really focused on in my life right now too, because I have really, I think, done pretty good in terms of using logic and using, calculated risks, all the tools that I have been learned through engineering school and all the engineering companies that I have worked with to get to where I am. But I think there's.
You mean they don't teach you inner peace in engineering school? Is that part of it at all? Is there?
I must have slept through that class. But I think now that I have people that work for me and I have families that I have to support, there's a part of me that wants to be better as a whole for myself, which means not only do I need to be technically, have leadership, but also have, heart leadership to make sure that I can lead with passion. And I think specifically in real estate, technicality, features, and benefits can only get you so far too.
Yeah.
So real estate, if you talk about in general real estate and higher level types of more expensive real estate, the heart, the passion, the ability to influence, the ability to tell the story of your development, your product is very important as well.
Well, you're also building something that's an emotional decision for someone to make in picking a house. How do you go about designing the kind of house that you're gonna be selling? Because you're not pre-selling these. These are you're kind of building a house for a particular customer, right?
Yeah. So I would say like 95 to 98% of our homes are all speculative homes, which means we just buy the land, we analyze the market, and we develop and build the houses, and we just put it on the open market, and just believing that someone will buy this product. But that believing is kind of a special word. We have to be very dialed in and calculated in our development process to make sure that if this house is at $2 million in Green Hills, this is a level of development, quality, finishes, and features that this house deserves versus a house that's $1 million in East Nashville. So we have development standards in different sectors of our product mixes.
Mm. And the design decisions, are you doing those too?
I used to, but now like we have a head of design, which is Rachel. She has one other person that helps her manage multiple different design studios. So we mostly don't do our designs in house. But depending on and going back to your question on how do we look at what we do? Well, when someone sends me a particular address, I look at the address, I look at the topography and the size of the lot, and I have to look at the different types of zoning restrictions for that lot to see if that lot can do what it's supposed to do, and then all the due diligence behind it to kind of see if the lot is actually feasible. Right. And the next step is really to find out what is the right product that we need to develop. Like, you don't want to put a $2 million house in a $1 million neighborhood, for example, but more importantly, it's about can we develop a home that's unique, that can inspire, but also differentiate itself, but also conform to a neighborhood too. We just don't want to be completely just different than anything else on the street as well. So we do take all those things into consideration when we look into a specific project, and we try to do our best to make sure that we deliver a high quality product and unique and marketable in that
now, I know
marketplace.
You're fairly new in EO. Mm-hmm. What was how'd you hear about EO first off? And then what are you expecting to get in EO?
So I was just kind of working. I mean, especially, during COVID, I was working a lot, and I was working by myself a lot because you couldn't really hang out with anybody. So I was talking to my financial advisor. His name's Andy from Continuous Planning. And I told him after COVID that, I wanted to, kind of reach out to some of the other business leaders across Nashville, because I'm very isolated in my current industry. Like, before I EO, I think I just talked about real estate all the time, which is okay, but not everyone is in real estate, and I know that. So in fact, I before EO and before I even talked to Andy, I would actually go and volunteer or like go for my own, just for no benefits, for my own benefit, that I would go to some of those pitch nights in the Entrepreneur Center. Mm-hmm. I would go to some of those affordable housing conferences that are happening in the Music City Center. So just to kind of get me to expand my horizon than just thinking and talking about real estate. I feel like, as a business owner, you need to keep your eyes open about other industries. I mean, for example, like right now, AI is a big topic. And if you don't start the conversation now about AI and have some type of a basic knowledge of it, you may get left behind. Mm-hmm. So I'm always a person that always trying to expand my horizon on not just looking at what I'm doing today. Hopefully there's something in other industries that can really complement each other and help us each other to grow. So EO just became a natural course for me to join, because it's a organization that has industries all throughout Middle Tennessee and has global reach. So it has been a very, very welcoming part of my life.
Yeah, we were talking about AI at lunch today.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things that's absolutely going to change the face of every industry. I think there are going to be so many things that we can use it for. It's one of the beautiful things about EO, I think, is that when we're in forum, we get to talk about all these other things that we didn't get into business to do, but we have to deal with. Mm-hmm. I don't really want to have an HR person, but it just is required.
Yeah, I think you could take any EO forum and just say, all right, we're only going to talk about AI for the next 4 hours. And you would fill up, because everyone's got a tool they're using. There's literally another tool every week that's being announced. It's 10 times better than the tool I was just using. And I don't even know how to keep up with it. Is there anything that you've started to use that, besides all the typical ones, that is kind of becoming your daily habit by any chance?
Not specifically. I mean, I use ChatGPT and it's not even heavily business related, but just recently ChatGPT released a new version that you're able to actually submit your house plans into it. It'll automatically generate renderings for you, and they're actually pretty good. Before they didn't have that capability.
Wow.
So now you can tell that, I can tell that there's going to be a lot of, it's going to be able to systemize a lot of processes because
you mean you could send a picture of your house?
Actually, it just, my construction plan. So typically we would pay like a couple $1,000s for that service, because, if you think about AI, when you physically actually someone sends you a rendering of a house based on construction plans, someone has to physically render like all the color palettes, all the lighting, all the sun, to make sure that this house looks the way it is, and every single picture needs to be done correctly. So it needs to be done in a way that matches the sunset and the sunlight. But with AI, it wasn't possible like last year or maybe a few months ago, but now they're able to take the same set of plans and they'd be able to render it automatically with all those different things, and which is a huge time saver. So yeah. I think I heard an example from I forgot who it was, but he basically said the first movie Avatar was completely rendered. So it took like 2 to 3 years to render the whole scene of how to capture all these animations. The same movie can be generated in like 10 minutes. That's the speed of what rendering versus what they call like AI generative graphics are now.
Yeah,
it's remarkable. It's like we're really on this new technology cutting edge that people as human beings it's almost like the invention of electricity.
Right.
Yeah. And I've also noticed that especially entrepreneurs is this unique bunch that's starting to develop their own relationship with talking to their AI, like telling AI, like kind of like their daily things that their decisions they're struggling with, or people that they're struggling with. I know I put culture index and disc profiles of my team in there and talk to it about challenges and decisions I need to make. And it's the first time that I'm seeing it's helping to organize my thoughts. Because I think a lot of driven entrepreneurs, like you have all these ideas, like all these, but they're not totally different ideas. They're like in categories, but AI seems to help organize it in my head to help me articulate a vision I have of something.
And it puts disparate things into the mix that you would have never considered before.
Right.
And then it, like you described, it can create a rendering and you go, well, that's close, but it gives you an idea.
Sure.
And it helps you generate new things.
It's just going to get better and better too.
Yeah.
So,
We're using the worst AI that's ever going to be today. It's just going to keep getting better.
In 2 years, we're going to talk about like, dude, how did we do what we did?
Right.
Archaic.
From my perspective, it's like I had never considered that it would be used in your industry, but it's touching everything.
I think it's the closest thing as Thomas Edison.
Oh yeah.
Like when you talk about the invention of internet, the invention of SEO, the invention of Google word ads and trying to optimize businesses. This technology we have today is far beyond that.
Yeah.
It's almost like we've turned this. We've been using gas lanterns for hundreds of years, and here's this thing called a conduit and electricity that produces light bulb, but it can power other things. What do you want to do with it?
Right.
So we're still kind of on the beginning stages of it. But if you think about it that way, it's pretty monumental what this technology can do.
Yeah.
Hey, Key, I appreciate you joining us today and telling your story. Tell me, if you were joining EO tomorrow, how would you lead someone along to have a good experience to get the most out of EO?
I would say the number one thing for joining EO is try to be as open as you can with anyone, because there's so many people with so many different varieties of business, small and large. And I feel like no matter who you talk to or where you are in your current stage of your business, have an open mind to try to embrace everyone, because you can probably find something you can learn from everybody.
So I know you're into mindset stuff.
Yeah.
So let's chat about that.
Yeah. So that's interesting, because that's another piece of the self-development that I'm working on. And I want to, and I'm kind of making this statement because I don't know if it's really my opinion. So hopefully you can, I would love positive, constructive feedbacks, but I look at mindset as just one of the 3 categories in self-development. And what I mean by that is, like when you say I have strong mindset and like I want to go fearless and I want to take all my limiting beliefs and go do something. That's a great mindset, and I practice it. I think everyone needs to have that ability, because some people do have a lot of limiting beliefs. Mm-hmm. But I feel like there's 2 other components. One is the capacity of so I call it CMI, capacity, which is your knowledge base for what you wanted to do. So if you have the mindset to do something, if I go to Tony Robbins and then come back home and say like, oh man, I'm so fearless now, I need to go buy more lots. Well, that's probably not the right idea, not right now, So understanding your capacity is very important to kind of grow, to kind of self-develop. So what that means for me right now is probably one of the other groups that I have joined is the Brand Builders Group, where I want to develop more capacity in my ability to develop personal and company brands. And I want to be amongst world-class presenters and leaders that have developed those brands. So that's an area that I'm spending a lot of time on. But in addition to that, I'm spending more time on geographic expansions for my company, which is going out looking for different counties that we want to focus in, specifically Williamson County, or going to trade shows and developing more, I would say, systems and processes to kind of go into the next category of product mix we're focused on, which is the $4 to $6 million category. So those are all technical things that I'm going to go do, and they're going to take some time to go do it. But that hard work is not being replaced by just mindset. And I want to make that very clear that there's the mindset work and then there's capacity work, but also there's a third component too. I call it identity work. So what I mean by that is, as a leader, you may go to Tony Robbins and be able to do all your mindsets. You may break down your limiting beliefs. You may break through some of those limiting beliefs or some of those traumas you have gone through that week. But what they don't teach you really is what you do day to day to kind of help your behavior work and your internally kind of address your mindset. And that practice itself is through additional work that I do. And I think one of the things I go to a therapist, and I go to a group therapist where we're in a room of like 8 people and we talk about different issues, personal and traumatic issues. And sometimes some people will be I'll get very agitated because someone's talking too fast or not making enough point or whatever it is. I have the ability in that safe space to be able to confront that group with my anxiousness or my anxiety, and I can kind of go into the root cause of why I feel that way. Not because I don't like the person, it's internally of why I feel this way and how quickly I react to that way. And I feel like some of that identity work will help you to develop those tolerances when you're in the outside world. So, or another example is really like, if you're so good and believing and loving yourself and believing yourself, if someone tells you that you're fat, short, whatever, you wouldn't take that in as you would say, that's not common. It's not for me, whatever, blow it off. Right. But if you don't have strong identity, you may be subject to something people will say to you that may affect you, that may cause your mindset to change. So I want to emphasize that a little bit more, because there's too many people that I've hear out there that are saying mindset, get into this mindset. And then you can say something and manifest to success, but in all reality, I don't think it's a replacement for hard work.
Yeah, that you bring up a great point. We've all got this trauma in our past. All it takes is one person to say the wrong thing to us, and it just completely sets us back. And unless you're strong enough to say that I liked what you said, that comment is not for me. If you can't do that, you can ruin the rest of your day.
That's right.
And then you're not in your mindset anymore.
That's right.
Or also talking about when you're with somebody that's triggering you.
Yes.
And you have to realize, oh my God, this is me.
Yes.
I'm literally angry at me, and I'm portraying that on you, but I am really, I get this thing that I'm having to face.
There's something internally that's subconsciously a part of your body. They say, like, there's a book that I read that said, by the time you're 35, you're 95% already programmed. Mm-hmm. So you're subconsciously already are being triggered by something that you have experienced, that you've like ran away from, or you need to fight for it, or you fight. There's something there, and for you to really get better at that behavior, I think it's the identity work. It's that's going to help you to kind of transition yourself out and kind of be more aware and conscious of those habits.
I think that happens too, and why I think EO is so important, and why you see why group therapy works is storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's in the storytelling. When you're telling a story and you trip over to your vulnerability, it makes all of us like really listen. And as we're listening to your vulnerability, we start to see our story come out of your mouth because it's very relatable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we actually see our own code, that code that was programmed wrong. It's almost like a programmer's like looking at some code and going, oh, wait a minute. This isn't a true story about me. Like this story is actually wrong. I'm misinterpreting my own code. And that's, I think, what the power of EO does is like, if we went into the programming in our mind and looked at the code and actually analyzed all of our old stories, we'd realize we are misprogrammed, and we can change that code and re-experience and have meaning to it. And then that does go into the mindset of being able to program our mind. But you're right. Knowing who we are, well, actually knowing who we were.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of it is just knowing who we used to be, but now we're not. Well, why aren't we not now? Well, some story's wrong.
Yeah. And I think it's all about like having more self-awareness. Like if you don't like that behavior, why you feel like, because like humans, we have the special ability to kind of look at ourselves from a third party perspective, from the in the future or in the past, and you can kind of self-judge yourself to see what went right and what went wrong. And if you're not happy with those particular outbursts or whatever triggers you, then there's tools out there that can help. That can help with that, and I'm working on that myself.
Yeah, I had that conversation with somebody the other day. I'm like, I kind of reacted poorly, and that's on me. Mm-hmm. And then kind of said, let's just reset here. And maybe I'm growing up after all.
Well, I think the moral of the story here, EO's for people growing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like EO's not for people that have figured it out. Those are the worst people to have, by the way, in a forum experience. Those are the ones that
they're fully baked, or they think they are.
Yeah, it's like, man, if you think you're fully done, you were wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think EO is a great place because most people in that environment wants to grow, wants to have high level energy people around them that can positively impact to make a difference.
Yeah.
Well, Key, thanks for joining us today. If you are in Nashville, Tennessee, an entrepreneur, you want to belong to a community of other driven entrepreneurs, please visit eonashville.com and learn how Forum, the experience of being together with other entrepreneurs growing in life and business. If this is something you're interested in, please visit us at eonashville.com. Thanks for watching and have a good rest of your week.
Thanks for listening to the Decision Podcast by Nashville EO. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.